From vintage mixers that have been whipping cream since the roaring 20s to refrigerators that have kept food cold through the Great Depression, World War II, the Cold War, and every TikTok trend since. These are the machines from 1920 that somehow still outlast the garbage we're buying in 2020. Because if you thought newer equals better, then you haven't met the 95-year-old toaster that still browns bread perfectly while your smart toaster from last year is already bricked because the company shut down the app. Yeah, we're living in an age where your great-grandmother's washing machine has outlived 3 of yours, and it's not because she was just lucky. It's because companies discovered that making things that don't break is actually bad for business. So buckle up, because I'm about to show you exactly why that one $200 refrigerator you just bought will be in a landfill in 7 years, while the one built during Prohibition is still running in someone's basement. From conspiracy meetings that literally happened, to death chips hidden in your printer, to the math that makes this whole nightmare make sense, this is why machines from 1920 still outlast machines from 2020. Let's talk about the KitchenAid Model K stand mixer. First manufactured in 1937, and if you walk into the right vintage kitchen today, you'll find one still whipping meringue like it's got a personal vendetta against underbeaten eggs. This thing weighs 25 pounds. Cast metal body, motor with copper windings that could probably outlast your car's engine. The gears inside are solid steel, machined to tolerances that would make modern manufacturers weep. And every single part, from the beater shaft to the planetary gear, was designed to be removed, inspected, and replaced by anyone with basic tools and a weekend. These mixers didn't just work, they worked for generations. There are documented cases of Model K mixers still in daily use after 80-plus years. One family in Wisconsin has a 1941 model that's mixed dough for an estimated 15,000 loaves of bread. The motor has never been replaced. The body has never cracked. The only things they've changed are the rubber gaskets and the power cord, both available at any hardware store for $3. Now compare that to a modern KitchenAid. Yeah, still uses the same basic design, but weighs 14 pounds, uses plastic and thin-gauge steel, and features a motor that overheats if you try to knead bread dough for more than 10 minutes. The gears are nylon and pot metal. And good luck repairing it yourself, because half the parts are glued together, and the other half require proprietary tools. The 1937 model was built in Greenville, Ohio, by workers who expected that mixer to outlive them. The 2020 model is assembled in China from components sourced from the lowest bidder, engineered to hit a specific price point and, let's be honest, a specific failure point. So, what changed? Well, here's where it gets interesting. In 1937, that stand mixer cost about $55, which adjusted for inflation is roughly $200 today. You paid once, you paid a lot, and you never paid again. That was the deal. The manufacturer made their profit on the initial sale, and you were done. Maybe you'd buy some replacement beaters, but the core machine? That was yours for life. But from a business perspective, that model is a disaster. Because once everyone who wants a mixer has a mixer that never breaks, you've saturated your market. You're not selling mixers anymore, you're just waiting for your customers to die so you can sell to their kids. And their kids already inherited a perfectly good mixer. Translation: building machines that last forever is financial suicide. So manufacturers looked at that equation and said, what if we flipped it? Instead of selling one machine that lasts 50 years, what if they could sell 5 machines over 50 years? What if they engineered products that worked perfectly during the warranty period but started developing issues right after? And before you think I'm being paranoid, let me tell you about the most documented conspiracy in manufacturing history. Meanwhile, in 2020, let's see what you're getting for your money. You walk into Best Buy, drop $800 on a Samsung front-load washing machine with Wi-Fi connectivity, because apparently your washer needs to send you notifications now. The salesperson tells you it's Energy Star certified, it's got 14 wash cycles, it's built to last. What they don't tell you is that machine will be dead in 7 years, maybe 10 if you're lucky, and never wash anything heavier than pillowcases. 7 years. Your great-grandmother's Maytag from 1950 is currently on year 75, but your smart washer with the app? Landfill before your kid graduates middle school. And here's the kicker. That 1950 Maytag cost about $140, which adjusted for inflation is roughly $1,800 in today's money. Expensive, yeah, but you paid once. Your modern washer costs $800, which seems like a deal until you realize you're buying 3 or 4 of them over the same period. Suddenly, you're spending $200 for machines that collectively perform worse than the single one Grandma bought. Talk about a scam. But it gets worse, because modern appliances aren't just dying faster, they're dying in ways that make them impossible to repair. That Samsung has a control board that manages all the electronic functions. When it fails, and it will fail, replacing it costs $400 to $600 for a machine you paid $800 for. So most people just buy a new washer, which is exactly what the manufacturer is counting on. The drum bearings are sealed units requiring half the machine disassembled to access. The spider arm connecting the drum to the drive shaft is made of cheap pot metal that corrodes when exposed to detergent. When it fails, repair cost exceeds replacement cost. And God forbid your appliance relies on proprietary software, because when LG decides to stop supporting that model's firmware, your perfectly functional washer becomes a 200-pound brick. There are documented cases of smart refrigerators becoming unusable because the manufacturer shut down the server controlling the ice maker. Your ice maker needs to phone home to corporate headquarters or it stops working. This isn't an accident. This is the system working exactly as designed. According to the National Association of Home Builders, appliances built in the 1970s had average lifespans of 15 to 30 years. Washers and dryers lasted 18 years. Refrigerators went 20. Dishwashers hit 15. Modern appliances? Average washing machine lasts 10 years. Refrigerators last 13. Dishwashers are lucky to see 9. We're looking at a 40 to 50% reduction in lifespan across the board, but this isn't just about your washer dying young. It's about the fact that repairing it has become functionally impossible. Manufacturers have deliberately designed products that can't be fixed by anyone except authorized service centers, charging rates that make buying new seem logical. So why the massive downgrade? Because in the 1920s, a light bulb cartel figured out that if you want to maximize profits, you don't make the best product possible. You make the worst product people will tolerate buying repeatedly. Let me tell you about the Phoebus cartel. And yes, this is exactly as shady as it sounds. In 1924, the world's major light bulb manufacturers, Osram, Philips, General Electric, and others, formed a secret agreement called the Phoebus Cartel. Headquarters in Switzerland because, of course, their stated goal was to control the light bulb market by standardizing products and limiting competition. But here's what they were really doing. They were deliberately reducing the lifespan of light bulbs. Before the cartel, incandescent bulbs regularly lasted 2,500 hours or more. Some experimental bulbs had hit 5,000 hours. But the Phoebus cartel decided that was bad for business, so they instituted a mandatory maximum lifespan of 1,000 hours. Any member company whose bulbs lasted longer than that was fined. Translation: They literally got together in a room and agreed to make worse products so they could sell more of them. The cartel enforced this through testing. If your bulbs lasted too long, you paid penalties. The whole system was designed to maximize repeat purchases by ensuring light bulbs would burn out right when the cartel wanted them to. And this wasn't conspiracy theory. This was documented corporate policy. Meeting minutes explicitly discuss the lifetime of lamps and penalties for exceeding lifetime targets. This is the birth of planned obsolescence as deliberate business strategy. The cartel operated from 1924 to 1939, when World War II basically blew up the arrangement. But by then, the concept had spread like wildfire, because executives at other companies looked at what the light bulb cartel was doing and thought, wait, we could do that with our products too. Enter General Motors and Alfred Sloan. Sloan became GM president in 1923, and he pioneered annual model changes. Before Sloan, you bought a car and drove it until it fell apart. But Sloan realized that if GM released a new model every year with slightly different styling, they could make last year's perfectly functional car feel obsolete. You didn't need a new car. Your 1928 Chevrolet ran fine, but GM wanted you to want a new car because the 1929 model had different chrome trim. This was psychological obsolescence. Your product still worked, but they made you feel bad about using it. And then in 1954, industrial designer Brooks Stevens gave a speech where he defined planned obsolescence as instilling in the buyer the desire to own something a little newer, a little better, a little sooner than is necessary. Notice he didn't say, making a better product. He said, making you desire a newer one even though yours works fine. By the 1950s and 60s, planned obsolescence wasn't a dirty secret anymore. It was official design philosophy taught in business schools. Companies weren't hiding it. Magazine articles about how to engineer products with specific failure points. Design conferences where engineers shared techniques for making things break at predictable intervals. The light bulb conspiracy was just the beginning. Because by the middle of the 20th century, manufacturers weren't just shortening lifespans, they were getting creative. Fast forward to the 1950s, and companies got creative with their planned obsolescence strategies. Take nylon stockings. When DuPont first invented nylon in the 1930s, they made women's stockings that were nearly indestructible. And that was a problem. Once every woman owned a pair that never wore out, DuPont's sales tanked. So what did they do? They deliberately reformulated nylon to make it weaker and more prone to runs. Sales recovered immediately. Translation: we made our product worse on purpose so you'd have to keep buying it. But that's nothing compared to modern tech companies and printer cartridges. Your printer tells you the ink is empty when there's still 20 to 40% left. How? There's a chip embedded in the cartridge that counts pages, not ink levels. Once you hit the predetermined page count, the chip tells your printer to stop working even though there's plenty of ink remaining. Epson, HP, and Canon have all been sued over this, and internal documents proved they knew exactly what they were doing. And it gets worse. In 2017, Apple admitted to intentionally slowing down older iPhones through software updates. They claimed it was to preserve battery life. But the real effect was making your perfectly functional 2-year-old iPhone feel sluggish and outdated, pushing you toward an upgrade. They settled a lawsuit for $500 million. But by then, millions of people had already bought new phones they didn't need. Then there's John Deere, which has locked farmers out of repairing their own tractors. Modern John Deere equipment has software requiring authorized dealer access to diagnose and fix. A farmer can't even change the oil without the tractor's computer throwing error codes that only a dealer can clear. When a $500,000 combine breaks down during harvest, farmers wait days for a technician and pay dealer rates for repairs they could have done themselves. Translation: you don't actually own the tractor you paid $500,000 for. Car manufacturers are doing the same thing. Modern vehicles have dozens of computer systems requiring proprietary diagnostic tools, independent mechanics getting locked out because they can't access the software, and when those modules fail, which they do constantly, replacement cost is astronomical because you can't buy the part from anyone except the dealer. BMW actually tried to charge a subscription fee for heated seats. The hardware was already installed in your car, you'd already paid for it, but BMW wanted $18 a month to activate the feature through software. They eventually backed down after massive backlash, but the fact that they tried shows you where this is heading. These aren't isolated incidents. This is the business model. From smartphones that brick themselves after 3 years to appliances with components designed to fail right after warranty expires, planned obsolescence has evolved from make it break eventually to make it impossible to fix when it breaks. So, by now, you're probably thinking, okay, but why? Why would companies deliberately shoot themselves in the foot making products that fail and frustrate customers? Well, here's where the math gets really depressing. Let's talk dollars and cents, because from a corporate perspective, planned obsolescence makes perfect sense. Here's the math. Sell one washing machine that lasts 50 years, or sell 10 machines over those same 50 years. Which makes more money? Obviously the second one. And that's not even counting the repair revenue you're losing when nothing ever breaks. So companies started engineering failure into their products. Take that KitchenAid mixer motor. The 1937 model used copper windings, cast aluminum housing, ball bearings, weighed 8 pounds by itself. Manufacturing cost for that motor alone? Probably $60 in today's dollars. Modern mixer motor uses aluminum windings, plastic housing, sleeve bearings, weighs maybe 3 pounds. Manufacturing cost? About $15. Right there, the company saves $45 per unit on just the motor. Multiply that across every component: plastic body instead of cast metal, nylon gears instead of steel, thin gauge sheet metal instead of thick forged parts, and you're saving maybe $200 per unit in material and manufacturing costs. Now, scale that. Making 5 million mixers a year? That's $1 billion in cost savings. But here's the beautiful part for shareholders. You're not passing those savings on to consumers. The modern mixer still costs $400. So you've got the same revenue coming in, massively reduced costs going out, and your profit margin just exploded. Translation: they save money. You spend more money over your lifetime buying replacements, and your stuff breaks faster. Everybody wins except you. And the economic system rewards this, because publicly traded companies are legally obligated to maximize shareholder value. If your competitor is using cheaper materials and planned obsolescence to boost profit margins, and you're still building tanks that last forever, Wall Street punishes your stock price. Investors don't want you selling one product per customer per lifetime. They want recurring revenue. So even companies that want to build quality get trapped in a race to the bottom. Because if you're charging $200 for a mixer that lasts 50 years, and your competitor charges $400 for one that lasts 7 years, most consumers pick the cheaper option. They're not doing lifetime cost analysis. They're looking at their checking account balance right now, and that's the genius of it. The system has conditioned us to optimize for upfront cost instead of lifetime value, but the financial incentives are only half the story, because the real difference between machines from 1920 and machines from 2020 isn't just economics. It's a complete philosophical shift in how we design and manufacture products. Here's the thing about machines from 1920. They weren't designed by accountants asking, how cheap can we make this? They were designed by engineers asking, how good can we make this? When someone sat down to design that 1937 KitchenAid mixer, their goal was excellence. The manufacturing process was led by people who understood materials, tolerances, mechanical engineering. They over-engineered everything because the cost of a warranty claim or reputation damage was higher than the cost of using better materials. Modern product design is led by MBAs asking very different questions. How thin can we make the metal before it fails? How can we replace this steel gear with nylon? Can we move production to a factory where labor costs 1/10 as much? What's the minimum viable quality we can ship without generating returns during warranty? And here's where it gets personal, because this shift isn't just about products, it's about what we've lost as a culture. The environmental cost is staggering. Americans generate 11 million tons of e-waste every year. Discarded electronics, appliances, devices, most of which could have been repaired with a single replacement part if they'd been designed for repair. Instead, they end up in landfills leaching toxic materials into soil and groundwater, or shipped to developing countries where workers disassemble them by hand in dangerous conditions. Your grandma's fridge that ran for 60 years produced zero waste until it finally died and got recycled for scrap metal. Your modern fridge will be in a landfill in 13 years because the sealed refrigerant system costs more to repair than buying new. The economic cost to consumers is equally brutal. In 1960, the average household spent about $1,800 per decade on appliances when adjusted for inflation. Today, closer to $4,000 per decade because we're replacing things twice as often at prices that haven't dropped proportionally. But the cultural cost might be the worst part, because we've lost the entire concept of repair. Your grandfather could fix his tractor. He understood how the carburetor worked, how to adjust the timing, how to replace a worn bearing. That knowledge was passed down, valued, respected. Today, you can't even open your iPhone without voiding the warranty. The screws use proprietary heads requiring special tools Apple won't sell you. The components are glued together. The software is locked down. We've gone from a society that fixed things to a society that throws things away and buys new ones. And manufacturers have deliberately engineered that helplessness into us. This wasn't just about making products. It rewired our entire relationship with physical objects. We went from ownership to temporary possession, from pride in maintaining things to frustration when they break, from skills passed down through generations to dependency on authorized service centers. So, are we just screwed? Is everything doomed to break in 5 years while landfills grow and bank accounts drain? Well, not if some people have anything to say about it. But here's the plot twist. Turns out people are done with this nonsense. The right to repair movement has been gaining serious momentum. In 2020, Massachusetts voters passed a ballot initiative forcing car manufacturers to provide independent repair shops with the same diagnostic tools they give dealers. The vote wasn't even close, 75% approval. In 2022, New York became the first state to pass comprehensive right-to-repair law covering electronics. The law requires manufacturers to provide parts, tools, and documentation to consumers and independent repair shops. Colorado, Minnesota, and California followed with similar legislation. And the European Union went even further. In 2023, they passed regulations requiring smartphones and tablets to have easily replaceable batteries by 2027. No more glued-in batteries that die after 500 charge cycles and require professional disassembly. They're also mandating software updates for at least 5 years and requiring manufacturers to make spare parts available for 7 years. Translation: the demand for quality still exists. Companies just spent decades ignoring it. Meanwhile, online communities like Reddit's Buy It for Life forum exploded to over 2 million members. People sharing information about which brands still make durable products, tracking which vintage items are worth buying used, teaching each other repair skills. The community maintains lists of BIFL-approved products across every category. And some companies are actually listening. Miele still makes washing machines in Germany engineered for 20-year lifespans. Speed Queen builds commercial-grade washers for home use with 5-year warranties because they expect them to last 25 years. Vitamix blenders come with 7 to 10-year warranties and are so over-engineered that repair shops report seeing units from the 1970s still in daily use. Yeah, these cost more up front. Speed Queen washer runs about $1,400 compared to $600 for a Samsung, but here's the math. That Samsung dies in 7 years. The Speed Queen lasts 25. Over 25 years, you'll spend $2,400 on 4 Samsung washers, or $1,400 once for the Speed Queen. The quality option is literally cheaper if you're patient enough to look past the sticker price. Repair cafes have sprung up in cities worldwide. Community spaces where volunteers with repair skills help people fix broken appliances, electronics, household items for free. Amsterdam alone has over 50 repair cafes. The goal isn't just fixing stuff, it's teaching people that repair is possible. YouTube has become an accidental university for repair knowledge. Channels like Louis Rossmann have millions of subscribers watching him fix MacBooks and iPads while explaining why Apple makes repair so difficult. He's become one of the most visible activists for right-to-repair legislation. This isn't some fringe movement anymore. This is mainstream consumer frustration boiling over into political action. So what does all this mean for you? Sitting here in 2025, trying to figure out if that toaster you're about to buy will outlive your houseplants. Here's the reality. You're living in the middle of this war between planned obsolescence and consumer resistance. On one side, manufacturers pushing harder than ever into disposable design. Smart appliances that stop working when the company shuts down the app server. Tesla disabling features in used cars through software updates, literally taking away functionality the previous owner paid for. Peloton bikes requiring monthly subscriptions, or they become expensive clothing racks. Ring doorbells that stop receiving security updates after a few years, leaving your home security system vulnerable. It's not even about things breaking anymore. They're trying to make you pay monthly for hardware features you already bought. But on the other side, you've got options your grandparents didn't have. Information is everywhere now. Before you buy anything, you can research it. Check the Buy It for Life subreddit. Look up repair guides on iFixit. Watch teardown videos on YouTube showing exactly how a product is constructed and whether it's designed to be repaired. You can buy vintage, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Craigslist, estate sales, gold mines for appliances from the 70s, 80s, 90s that still work perfectly. That 1985 Kenmore washer might need a new belt and some cleaning, but you can find tutorials online and the parts cost $30. You'll have a machine that outlasts anything new for a fraction of the price. You can buy from companies still doing it right. Miele, Speed Queen, Vitamix, Lodge Cast Iron, Darn Tough Socks with lifetime warranties, Filson bags, Red Wing boots. These brands cost more up front, but the lifetime math works in your favor. You can learn to repair. YouTube made expert knowledge free and accessible. You can watch a professional appliance technician walk you through diagnosing and fixing your refrigerator. No technical degree required, just patience and a screwdriver. And you can support right to repair legislation when it comes up on your ballot. Vote for it. When your representatives introduce bills, call them. Because the only reason we're seeing any progress is that consumers got loud enough that politicians had to listen. But here's the reality check. Most people can't afford the upfront cost of quality. When you're living paycheck to paycheck and your washer dies, you can't drop $400 on a Speed Queen. You're buying whatever's cheapest at Lowe's and hoping it lasts long enough to save up for the next one. This is a systemic problem that individual consumer choices can't fully solve. But the fact that you now know this system exists? That's power. You understand why your stuff breaks. You know it's not an accident. You know companies are making deliberate design choices to extract more money from you over time. And that brings us full circle. That 1920 KitchenAid mixer sitting in someone's kitchen right now, still mixing dough after 87 years? That's not a miracle. That's what happens when products are engineered for durability instead of replacement. That's what we lost somewhere between the Jazz Age and the Algorithm Age. And that's why machines from 1920 still outlast machines from 2020. And if you thought planned obsolescence was wild, wait until you see what companies are doing with subscription models for car features you already own. Because from heated seats requiring monthly payments to software updates that disable used car features, these are the most insane ways companies are turning ownership into rental. So click this video right here, or your smart fridge is going to start charging you per ice cube.